Welcome back to Delboy's Garage. How have you been? Now, been off the net for a week or so. Now, the main reason is that projects have just been piling up. Jobs have been piling up, things to do, life, work, shifts, you know it is. I'm bordering on getting to the point now where I'm almost contemplating going against my pet hate and putting a to-do list on the wall. It's getting that bad. I don't like to-do lists because they never ever get done. You just keep adding stuff to them, they become a rotating list and they stand there on the wall and last for years. When you walk in the garage they nag at you. I hate them, I don't have them. But I've got so many things I keep forgetting and then coming back to stuff, so I've got to get stuff done. We've got Penny Pit Stops Harley Davidson is coming up for a 10,000 mile service. That's a very important service. It's the critical fasteners, which is a fancy term for the important bolts, the ones that hold the engine in, the wheels in, the discs on, the forks on, etc. They've all got to be checked, and not just with a spanner and yet that's tight. They've got to be done properly. You loosen them off and you re-torque them, and with a Harley that vibrates as much as Harleys do, that has to be done every 10,000 miles, so that is time to do that. Bless her heart, 10,000 miles, I'm very impressed. I remember picking that up 2008, brand new, and here it is 4 years later. She's done 10,000 miles, 2,500 miles a year, not bad. She only rides with me weekends, when recreationally. She doesn't ride to work ever. She uses the old battle van, so effectively that's quite a lot of mileage when it works down about 100 miles per day out. We've done some long hauls as well and the bike's immaculate, so it just needs that 10,000 mile service. It's oil, filter, all the usual suspects. I'm going to put some plugs in it this time purely because they're 4 years old. They don't need changing at 10,000 miles, but they're 4 years old. The same as the brake fluid. I'm going to change the brake fluid because it's 4 years old. It's actually 2 years old because I put the braided hoses on 2 years ago, but 2 years is enough for brake fluid. It's hydrosorbic, it does absorb water or fluid, and it just improves them if you just pump the fluid through. So kind of a lot of jobs there. It's a big service, it'll be 3 parts maybe, which brings me to the other point, the length of videos. I've had a bit of a nagging, which I appreciate from people who are saying that the videos are getting a bit too short and there's no chat and it's not entertaining. I appreciate that, and even Penny said herself that it's changed. Since the Discovery guys came on board, they've said that they need them in 7 minutes. So we're trying to take these things in 7 minutes and it ain't working. And I think a few of you watched the safety bike walk round, the pre-ride safety checks. You saw it was just a hash. It was just a blast from end to end, and it was not fun to do and it wasn't fun to watch. So we've come to a compromise with the Discovery folks. What we're going to do is we're going to film a few little bits in between, what do they call them? Continuity clips, and they want me to film those. They're going to come all down, they're going to film up just some individual bits that they can intersperse, and then they can split the videos up, because they've got a time frame of 7 minutes. All the videos that go on the Discovery website have to be 7 minutes and no longer. That's their slot, but they can have 2 or 3 parts, so they're going to chop them up and they're going to do that. So we've come to a compromise on that, so it's business as usual. The stuff will go as normal. It will go back to the normal length. Now the second thing to do after Penny Pit Stop's bike, which will be in 3 parts as I said, is the Hayabusa. We've got an issue with that. It's pretty simple, straightforward. The steering alignment's off and it's very simple to do. It's very simple to throw it off. A decent pothole, postman, I thought he was going to walk in the garage. We've also got the potholes. As I said, you pop a wheelie, get the front up and it lands back down again. It can throw the steering geometry out in the front. It's just the forks twisting in their yokes or triple trees. They've just got to be straightened up. There's a way to align them. That will be a video as well, so that's 3 or 4 videos. And the Bandit, the old damage bucket, that needs an oil change. I'm not going to film that and I'm not going to upload it because I've done 2 already and they're up there in the library. It's just oil change, because that does gargantuan mileage. It's done 15,000 miles this year already and it's October. It does, well, gargantuan mileage, that's stupid. It isn't by any means big mileage, but it needs a lot of oil changes. So as I said, we've got the oil for that, and that will be done as well off camera. But they're jobs to do. Penny's bike, Hayabusa will be done, the Bandit's got to be done. Plus, I don't want to get too far back from the project on the trailer. Since the last video with the trailer, we had a bit of a disaster, which was just Monkey Boy here didn't think. I'll show you in a minute. So today all I'm going to do is I'm just going to blow a coat of paint around this wretched trailer and try and kickstart it back into gear, move it on a little bit, because it's just sitting there staring at me, wondering what's going to be doing next. So there we are, 3 bikes in the list. As you can see, to-do list, it all adds up. Plenty of videos to come on all that stuff. How-tos, I've got a couple of people asking for certain how-tos, which I will do. I will get to them. in amongst everything else. But for now I just want to kick on a nickel with the trailer. Got a bit to do. I want to blow a coat of paint around it, and I found a major hitch. And there's pun intended. Stick around, show what I mean. Alright, the trailer. Now, anybody who watches My Friend Pete, you know My Friend Pete, your friend Pete, everybody's friend Pete. Well, Pete says, he has his little catchphrase, we have a situation, and we have a situation with this. And the situation is, find it, is the height of this. Now, when the trailer is level, which it is if I'm holding it there, that's about the height of the hitch, about there. So, I'm just going to, hang on, I'll just come back to this. Better. Propped it up. Now, tape measure, get this level. I'll show you what's happened on this coating in a minute. So there we are, 8.5 inches. 8.5 inches. So that's riding, now, that rides level with the ground. Now when I measured it, and I made Project Tow Hitch, if you remember that, I set the tow ball at 11 inches. Because I measured the one on the battle van, and it turned out that now this is made and I've lowered it, we're sitting at 9 inches, not 11. And all I did, I measured to the centre of the bolts, which is, then the hitch goes over the top, and then the flange on the hitch sits there, so it's the top of the bolts. The top of the bolts on the van are 11 inches, so that should be 11 inches, but it's not. It's 9. Now the reason for that is because, if you remember, I've chucked all the scrap away now, but I had this daft beam suspension thingamajig that made it bounce up and down and made the wheels cant outwards. Took that off and mounted them direct, and I wanted it lower, and it is lower, and I'm happy. But what it's meant is that two things. When I first got this, Monkey Boy that we bought it from, this was mounted up here, because they're meant to hammer these down so they fit real tight and then bolt them in, which I've done. But when I bought it, the guy didn't work that out. He just kind of put it on, pushed it as far as it would go, bolted it, and there was about an inch there, and I measured it at that because I'm an idiot, and then I didn't lean on the fact that I took the suspension off. So what I've got to do is lift this up 2 inches or so. Otherwise, when you ride up the road, it's going to drag its tail, and that's not funny. And the simplest way to do that, I'm thinking, is to slice off the neck there, bring this up on top, come back and pop that on, or possibly under, whatever. That's going to go up on top of there, so that will lift that up and back. And what it'll also do is that huge neck on there is too long. It is too long. Penny pointed out the other day, when it's behind the bike, the whole rolling caboodle is 3 inches too long, and it took me half an hour to work out what on earth I'd done wrong. I've measured it. When you measure these, according to Squire website, which is the law on trailers, or they publish the laws on trailers, you go from the pivot axle, the middle of your rear wheel spindle at the back, to the aft of the trailer, and you've got exactly, I think it's something like 4 or 5 feet, I can't remember the exact measurement, and this was where it was. That is absolutely exact, and I just worked it out because I put these on. So now when you measure to these, the trailer's that much too long anyway, so that's going to be technically illegal. So if I don't shorten that neck, I'm contravening the rules, and I'm going to get, well, I've got to be careful here because I upset someone the last time I said this. When the authorities, the good people in blue, decide to pull you up and get their tape measure out, they're going to find me incorrect in length. Width-wise, perfect. Exactly 1 metre wide, but I'm now 3 inches too long. So I've got to shorten it, and I've got to lift that up. So I won't be doing it today, being as this is fat box section. It will be a fantastic opportunity for me to practice the old welding and get the welder banged up onto full power and just burn the whole thing on top. Just pile a big fat bead in there. I might even grind a couple of bolts down through it as well, just to hold it so it ain't going to detach on the motorway. But for now, what's happened with this? As you can see, it's a bit shiny. The last video, I put a load of blackboard paint on it, and I literally poured it on. And when I came out 3 days later, what I hoped was that it would look like this. Nice and kind of buried and lovely. Because, again, because I'm an idiot, this is impervious. This surface is solid, plastic or metal. Lovely. This is softwood. So all it did was breathe in the paint. Gone. Came out and all the paint was gone. Literally gone. It's like it hadn't been painted. About 2 days later it was just gone. So what I decided to do is I had half a tin of that bitumen paint, the stuff I painted the sand on the bottom and made the bed liner from. I had literally 1.5 litres of that left, so I terpsed it down a bit and just painted it all over. And I haven't filmed it because it's boring. As much as people say they like to watch, honestly, it really is boring. And then in the last 2 days that's been drying and it is great. This is exactly the remedy to the problem. Oops, come around the front with a bit more light. You can kind of see now, it's a bit tacky still. And I don't mean in bad taste, I mean it is still a bit sticky. So all I'm going to do with this is the water-based blackboard paint. I'm going to paint it over the top of that just to make it matte, just to get it to finish. But as far as that scrim's concerned, what I've actually done is before it's gone out in the weather, I've worked out that there is water's going to go through that, even with blackboard paint. So now it's got bitumen on the outside, bitumen underneath, and bitumen inside. That wood is totally mummified, completely. So right now, all the job is a bit of blackboard paint and start coating this thing up. I'm going to paint the whole thing right up there, leave the neck, because I've got to do that weldage, get stuck in. Now this is actually episode 30, believe it or not. Quite a momentous occasion. And all I'm doing with this now, all this paint coat is just over the top of what's there to give it a matte finish, really, because it's got enough protective coatings on it to last it, as my friend Dan Bethel said, several generations. Quite rightly so, Dan. It will last longer than me. So all I'm going to do now is, this is just uniform coat on the inside. It doesn't need a lot. And it's just to matte it, because obviously this bitumen stuff, shiny. And shiny is too posh for rat bikes. Isn't that right, Rat Queen? Right, so it's just a watery layer. Certainly doesn't need any thickness. Just a skin of matte black to make it matte black. There we go. That's that. Right, that will dry matte black in about a day. Half the time, the problem, should I say the difficulty with this, is just time for all the coatings to dry. I'm literally coating this thing up with masses of paint. Thick layers. Right, there we go. Okay, just enough. Okay, now this is completely impervious because the bitumen paint's done its job and formed a proper skin. This will go on nicely, just make a nice matte finish. Proper rat. Now that's lovely, now that's not sinking in at all. It's forming these lovely little menisci, if you want the posh boring word, which is just little dimples of surface tension that will then hopefully dry that way. I know I did this the other day in the last video, but they just hoovered them in and then it wasn't there anymore. But now that it's sealed with bitumen, I think we've cracked it. If it's no good like this, that will just collect dirt and cack and horribleness and look nasty. It wants to be a proper smooth surface like on the bike. Anyway, we need it to match. Working with it pretty much neat now, because it is too thin when you water it down. It just runs off, which is a pain because I've got puddles all over the floor now. Messy old business, ratting. Being water based, this doesn't take long to dry. Probably the whole trailer will be dying, I don't know, 2 more days, and then I can move around it. It's been a pain lately. Every time I go near it, every time I come in the garage, I'm walking against it, getting paint on myself, so it'd be nice to get it finally dried off. And this stuff's good, it dries. You can see it's dry because it just goes matte. A lovely finish. I would just love to paint a car with this stuff. Scrim the bonnet. Right, one side. Now, last side now. And just something else of interest. Our penny pit stop camera girl is actually not just a pretty face. She's quite clever. And she's got kind of some fancy history qualifications. She studied history and stuff at college. Now, she told me when I was doing the bitumen and sand underneath the trailer that it's been used in history. This was used on old ships, old square rigger ships, bitumen and sand and caulking. And apparently it's so tough that they found bodies on the Mary Rose. Now if you don't know what the Mary Rose is, then I'm surprised, because Mary Rose is Henry VIII's flagship, and it went down in the Solent, which is not far from here. I don't know, 1500 or something. What's that? Getting on for 500 years, over 500 years ago. And apparently what they did over the deck as a defence, because it was a warship, they put rope, 2-inch thick rope, soaked in bitumen or pitch, which I guess is as close as you're going to get to modern bitumen, but soaked in pitch and sand, a mixture of, like a soupy mixture of sand, beach sand and pitch. And this rope was trellised like a lattice work over the deck, about, I don't know, 6 feet up. And the idea of it was to repel boarders. If the ship was being boarded by the enemy, the idea was that they couldn't get through this thick layer, this, I guess you could probably call it a pergola, like a, I don't know, like a pagoda or whatever the word is, for like a roof. And the sailors could fight underneath and stick swords up the arses of the relevant boarders and kill them from below, but they couldn't be got at themselves. And apparently most of them died because when the ship sunk they couldn't cut it. It was so tough and the rope was so hard with the pitch and the sand that they couldn't cut them with swords, with saws, nothing. Certainly not quick enough to get out before they drowned. So this stuff, what we've done underneath, and the pitch, I mean obviously rope is made hemp, that sort of thing. This scrim is made of cotton, and if you soak it with bitumen, which I've done now, and then more paint, it is literally almost bulletproof. I think if you saw the first video we made, when I sort of built in the bike with a screwdriver, it is just bulletproof. This stuff, it's like armour. So this will last a very, very long time. And history tells us quite clearly that pitch or bitumen, same sort of thing, and sand and rope is extremely tough when mixed together. So I'm quite chuffed that we stumbled across this, really, and that I've got a penny pit stop who can tell me these factoids of history, which are fascinating. Pointless, but fascinating. Isn't she a treasure? Right, there we are. Now, what we're going to do with that is work it. Now it's all on there. Just dab it into all the little holes. Idea being they don't hold too much water and they're kind of skinned over a little bit. As this face is going to get the water blasted out from the back wheel, so it needs the most. I've got 3 layers of scrim on this one as well, rather than just 2, just to make it extra tough. Finally get to just paint the steel, which goes on lovely. Now this will probably get, I'll just let this dry off and then I can touch it up. This paint's not doing any weatherproofing or any kind now, it's just purely for aesthetics. There we go, that's enough of that. Black, done, all round, under, sand, bitumen, inside, rubber and bitumen, outside, scrim, you guessed it, and bitumen, and then all painted the bars. I will have missed a bit, that's absolutely for sure. Guaranteed I'll find a bit I've missed. But that's okay, because always save a bit. I've got about, I reckon, 1/3 of a tin, perhaps a bit more left there. Put that in the water, keep it nice and wet. So keep that safe. Stamp that on in a minute. get cleaned up, and I reckon that's enough for one go. So there you go, episode 30, Project Rat Trailer, and it's finally almost looking finished now. It is a messy old task, you know, you're laying on layers of paint, you're trying to get on enough paint so you don't have to do too many coats and then it starts running off and forming a pond on the floor. So it's a messy old business, but once it's done and it's worth it. And it does look great, I must admit. I want to get this dry. As you saw just now, the weather is appalling. It has been raining like this since I woke up this morning at 4 o'clock, and it's probably going to rain all night. So this isn't the weather for this to dry, but it's waterborne. It's completely dry in this garage. I've got a dehumidifier. I'm going to pump that in here, start drying out the air, and hopefully this will also get dried off in the next few days. And then I want to get it out. I want to get the tow hitch on the back of the Bandit and weight the bike down, put the trailer on the back and work out exactly what angle. That is a problem. Like my friend Pete says, we have a situation, and this situation's pretty serious. I can't tow up the road dragging its tail like that. It's just going to hit the ground. It's not going to go around corners properly and all sorts. So I do have to get that done. I'm a bit of a monkey boy really. I should have sorted it out at the beginning. It's just an error of measurement. This is what happens when you're doing rat stuff. If I was doing this as a nice trailer, if I was doing this like OCC where you now pull it apart and send it out for chrome and paint, etc., then I would have took a lot more trouble with exact measurements and notching everything a little bit better just to make sure it's perfect. But it's a rat stuff, I've thrown it together, and in that sense you do tend to forget stuff. So at the moment I'm just going to work out the best way to piggyback that hitch up on top of the bar so that it drops it or lifts it up as it were, and that's the last task. Then, as I said at the very beginning, we've got loads of stuff to do on all three bikes, a little bit of a to-do list. I may relent and put one on the wall. So there you go, I'm waffling too much. I'm going to call it a day here. Thanks for tuning in and watching Delboy's Garage. I always appreciate all your support. Ride safe, take care, and I will see you for the next one.